everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Welcome to our home ownership webinar hosted by the Economic Development Committee of Grand Rapids Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. My name is Ashley Powell, and I am the Economic Development Committee Chair. And we just want to continue on our Financial Fortitude Month, which is this month, and we're wrapping it up with our home ownership webinar. And as you guys know, housing is such a crisis right now. So we thought that we can be able to give you these tips and tricks that you can use if you are looking to buy at this moment. So with that being said, I would like to pass it on to a member of the Economic Development Committee. She is awesome. My soror, Cambriana Crank. You can take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go ahead. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. As Ashley has already said, this is such an important topic. And I have the honor and pleasure of introducing our speaker for today's session. So Anya Ward is an enthusiastic dreamer with an affinity for people and a passion to help others live lives full of beauty and joy. These values have led her down a career path anchored in creating spaces that celebrate our journeys and offer rest to the soul. She believes that our homes should be spaces that offer safety and a celebration of who we are. Anya holds a bachelor's degree in public and nonprofit administration from Grand Valley State University, and she has 5 years of experience in housing and human services with a focus on social equity, first-time home ownership access, and neighborhood community development. She's worked in program management for a HUD certificate housing counseling agency and previously worked as a realtor at Keller Williams Grand Rapids East. Anya currently works as a program manager in philanthropy and the nonprofit sector. In her free time, she enjoys podcasts, working on home projects, and spending quality time with her family, pups, and close friends. So without further ado, I will go ahead and welcome Anya Ward.
Thank you, Cambriana. Thank you, Ashley. I'll go ahead and share my screen for our presentation. Also just want to say thank you so much for having me here today. I'm super excited to get this together. Here we go. Okay, perfect. You all should see my slides now. So to start, thank you for having me, the Grand Rapids Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm really glad to talk about home ownership, especially right now. Like, there's a lot of narratives around home ownership as being unattainable and really tough, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. But if I can leave you with nothing else, it's just like hope in the fact that there are resources, there is a place to start. And if it's something that you want for yourself, don't let that narrative get in the way of it being something that you can pursue. So with that, we'll jump into our presentation. Let me know if you have any questions along the way. Everyone can see my slide okay, right?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. All right, so thank you for that introduction, Cam. Again, my name is Anya Ward. I use she, her pronouns. I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I am a dog mama of 2 beautiful dogs. I'm also an aunt to a niece and nephew in Kalamazoo, and I'm engaged. I'm a fiance. Another important thing to know about me is that I'm a first-time homeowner. I bought a home along with my fiance during the pandemic in 2020. It was very interesting. It was a journey, and it wouldn't have happened without trusted professionals and my community around me also. It definitely had a lot of like points of discouragement and just feeling like maybe this isn't something that is going to work out for me. And so I want to share the resources that I use and that I've learned along my journey and profession so that you all can kind of know like it is okay. If you're in the process, if you're thinking about the process and it feels a little daunting, there's resources and you can get there. I'll also just share, as I go through the presentation, we'll have points to stop and talk about questions you might have. So feel free to drop any of your questions in the chat. Our Delta team will be navigating that chat and making sure it's monitored. So just drop those along the way. We'll pause together. Okay, so our goals together for this time, we just have 2 main goals. We have an hour together. We won't be able to go through like every single piece of the homeownership process. There are classes for that we'll talk about. They're like 6 hours long. So we will fold into this time just resources and a starting place. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll know where you can start for your process and home purchase journey, and then also know where to access home buyer resources. What to expect. In order to get to those 2 goals, we'll talk about 4 main tips. You can see those tips laid out right here, and we'll dig into them in more detail in a second. Okay, tip number 1 is don't count yourself out. You'll hear me say this a lot. Again, I know right now, like interest rates are a big conversation. And I just want to say, if you look at this presentation on the left side, it kind of lays out our traditional or like typical path to home ownership. So when you're thinking about starting the process of buying a home, you're thinking about getting qualified for a mortgage loan. That's the money that you're borrowing in order to buy your home. You're going to work with a mortgage lender. You're going to need to save money. You're going to have to qualify for a credit score, also debt to income ratio. So looking at how much debt you have monthly and how much income you have compared to that debt. You're also going to work with a licensed real estate agent. A lot of people think of realtors who are due paying members to NAR. And then you're going to begin your home search. You're going to put in offers and negotiate on your contract and the terms of your purchase. Once you're under contract, there's an entire process around appraisal and your lender making sure that what they're lending you on the property makes sense at the price that they're lending it to you for. And then they're going to do checks and balances and a process called underwriting also. After you get through all of that, then you're going to prepare for your closing, which is the meeting we kind of think about when you're signing paperwork, you're getting the deed to your home, and you're going to walk away, hopefully with keys. So all of that is a lot, right? Like we could spend so much time just on that conversation and all of the steps that go into it. And like, how do you get your credit ready for pre-approval? How do you get your debt down and your income raised in order to qualify for a DTI threshold? How do you find a licensed agent? And we'll talk about some of those things, but I just want to frame for you also that within that entire process, there are federal, state, and local programs that can help navigate those challenges. And those are the things that I really want to highlight while we're together today. Do we have any questions on that? Let me go back. Do we have any questions yet in the chat?
No questions in the chat right now.
Okay, perfect. Tip number 2. So you already know, don't count yourself out. There are resources that exist to help with that process of your home ownership journey and home purchase journey. With that being said, it's also extremely important to know your rights. We do have a fair housing law that's active for both the federal government and then also at a local level and at your state level. There are protections for you throughout the process, and I think it's just really important for people to know what those protections are and how to access resources for fair housing. If you are going to work with a realtor, with an agent, with a lender, it's so important to know like what to do if you feel like you're being discriminated against. I'll also just say that when these slides are shared, you will be able to click on these links to go directly to it. And then there's also an info sheet for this presentation where you can see access for like finding your local fair housing office, seeing what the protections are. I know people may be spread out in different areas, so I just want to make sure that you have access to those databases and directories to find the resources for where you're at.
Just one moment. Dr. Couch, thank you for letting us know that. Can you all please put your questions in the Q&A and we'll make sure to answer them? Because I see the chat is disabled.
Thank you, Cam. And it looks like there might be one thing in the Q&A. I can pause right here if we want to raise that.
Yeah, that was just Dr. Couch letting us know that the chat section is disabled. And so that's why we'll just use the Q&A for this time being.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so don't count yourself out. Also, know your rights. And number three, this is what we're really going to spend some time talking about together, is finding quality professional support. I'm going to talk about three main roles that are part of your home purchase journey and process that are super important. It can make a difference in your experience, in the access to the homes that you have, um, and overall, what home you end up in along your journey. So the first one is your mortgage lender. Your mortgage lender is the person that's qualifying your loan. So when you think about buying a house, right, it's going to be a large sum of money. It's usually the largest purchase that most people make in their lifetime. All of that money usually doesn't come up front, right? You know, some people do have the money up front. Amazing. Would love to be in that position. Most people are traditionally going to think about securing a loan for the purchase of their home. And so your mortgage lender, whether that's someone at a credit union or a bank or a mortgage office, is going to be the person going through paperwork with you, going through your savings, your income, your debt, your credit score in order to see what loans you qualify for. They're also going to determine the terms of your loan. So a lot of people may not realize that there's so many different terms within your loan. So your credit can influence your interest rate. There's also some points that can be added to your loan, or insurance points. So there's different fees that might be incorporated as far as how confident the bank feels in your ability to pay that loan back to them. They're also going to offer a menu of home loan programs to you that you may qualify for. And then they're going to work alongside underwriting, which we talked about briefly before. So the process of making sure that everything is secured for your loan before you close. And they can determine the speed and time needed to close. I want to talk a little bit more about this because we are in a really competitive market right now. A lot of sellers do want to sell their home quickly. We're seeing the market move kind of slow right now because there is higher interest rates. So we're seeing less inventory on the market, which means when people are going to buy and submit offers, things are getting picked up really quickly because there's not a lot of inventory available. When you go to find a mortgage lender, one, make sure that they're respecting your rights. If something feels off or you feel like they are not respecting your fair housing rights, definitely reach out to those offices and use those resources. But then also, it's important to ask them questions about how they work with you professionally that could affect you once you get to that negotiating table and you're submitting offers. So things like their working hours and how quickly they can respond to you. It's really hard if you're in the process of negotiating with somebody, you're under contract, or you're in a bidding war with someone, which means that there's multiple people bidding on a property and your mortgage lender is not responding at the same rate of time as someone else. If I'm a seller, I'll go with Joe, who has a super fast response time, who I know his mortgage lender is typically known for getting closed really quickly, over, Johnny, who's working with a mortgage lender where I know has a reputation for taking a really long time closing. So again, just make sure when you're looking for a mortgage lender, you're asking them about, their fair housing record, also how quickly they can close on home loans, and their hours and response rate and what you can expect for working with them. Also, it should be someone that you feel supported by and someone who you feel like you can trust. So definitely shop around. You don't have to go with the first person that you meet. You don't have to go with the person that's referred to by a friend or a realtor, but it is really helpful to go with a lender that has a reputation in your own circle or community. All right, the next professional we're going to highlight is a licensed real estate agent. That is someone who's licensed, for us, it'll be through the state of Michigan, to buy and sell in real estate transactions. This is a person we think of who's scheduling showings, finding a home that fits your needs and lifestyle. They're going to network with other professionals. They're going to do your contractual review and negotiations. And then they're also going to coordinate with the closing, for your closing with the title agency too. I have it bolded here that they're also going to work with professionals along your journey for inspections, warranties, and surveys, because those are people you want to lean on. Real estate agents are in the business of buying and selling with families, with individuals who are in the process of finding their homes. And so you can lean on them for things like who a good inspector is, what kind of home warranties, or if there's surveys, meaning if there's boundaries of your land and you want to make sure that your land is actually going to the fence line that you see and it's not cutting off. These things can be overlooked initially, but it is really important, especially just thinking of a home inspector. Buyers are spending so much money for an inspection on their home to make sure that their home is safe, to make sure that their home has all the things behind the walls that they think they do. You would hope that your home, is built well. It's not going to have electrical issues or issues with a water heater or your roof. Your inspection is supposed to make sure you don't have surprises once you get into your home. And real estate agents have a great network of professionals that they work with to make sure it's someone who's going to do that job and service for you well. The third role we're going to talk about, this is my favorite thing to talk about. I think it's a great resource and service. I think not enough people know about is HUD certified housing counselors. So in my bio, you heard that I used to work at an agency who provided HUD certified housing counseling. It's a service provided and funded through HUD, also through MISHDA, so our state and also our federal housing development authorities. And what they are, they're agencies that provide services to help households obtain, sustain, or maintain their homes. And since we're speaking about first-time homeownership or like homeownership 101, we're specifically going to talk about the households obtaining housing. They do this through providing intro to homeownership classes, also connections to financial counseling and pre-purchase counseling. Let me take a moment to speak about what those are. So intro to homeownership classes are an in-depth 6-hour class that highlight homeownership, everything from fair housing, like we talked about, to loan programs, to how to find a realtor, which we talked briefly about, what the mortgage process is, understanding the terms of your contracts and understanding the terms of your loan, and also assessing if it's something that you want to be responsible for. When you're thinking about owning your home as opposed to renting, there's a lot of upfront costs and a lot of unexpected costs and a lot of maintenance that goes into it. And so your intro to homeownership class is going to go over all of that in usually a 6-hour timeline with you. And then HUD certified counselors are also going to connect you to financial counseling and pre-purchase counseling. So earlier when we talked about things like your debt to income ratio or how to raise your credit score, pretty much all the things that are needed to be pre-purchase ready, these professionals can provide education and one-on-one counseling. It is free typically for that service in order for you to be pre-approval ready. Oftentimes, they're able to run soft FICO tri-merge credit reports. Those are the same reports that mortgage lenders pull in order to view your credit score. They're going to pull a soft one so that it's not on your credit report. And they're going to advocate for your fair housing and accessible housing. They'll also connect you to down payment assistance programs. Typically, they'll share what's available through the state, but then also a lot of local housing counseling agencies provide their own down payment assistance programs or even their own alternative home purchase programs. We're in such a unsure market right now that there's a lot of creative and exciting solutions being offered, and it's just super important to know all of your options. Once you get these slides, there is a link on this page for you to view a directory that will take you to find all of the different housing counseling agencies in your area. Another thing about HUD certified housing counselors is just that in addition to the education and the counseling that they provide, if there's other housing resources not homeownership related, they can usually help you there too. So this goes back to that, like, don't count yourself out. There are people in place, organizations and services in place meant to help you where you're at. And even if you think you're ready to go, I don't think that those services hurt. It's just additional information. I know for my own homeownership journey, when I was working at a HUD certified housing counseling agency, their advice and leadership really helped me feel empowered throughout my journey too. So I'm going to pause again and see if we have any questions.
No questions in the Q&A.
Okay,
Nope.
perfect. Thank you. We'll take a second again later, but okay. And then also we're going to talk about just exploring your home purchase options. So pause for a second. We talked about, trusting the process, not counting yourself out. We've talked about our resources and knowing our rights. And now we're going to talk about exploring your purchase options, especially because, again, the market can be tough. And it's really important to know that there are options outside of what you like traditionally see represented in people's stories of coming into homeownership. There's several loan programs available through HUD or through MISHDA that can help you purchase your home. There's a Michigan Home Loan Program, which does have down payment assistance embedded into it. It's for first-time homeowners purchasing their homes. And there are state-approved lenders who work specifically with this home loan program. But if savings is something that makes you hesitant about purchasing a home for the first time and the cost associated with a down payment, a Michigan Home Loan Program can be a really good fit. There's also FHA loans. That's what we think of when we think of traditional first-time homeowner loans. These typically carry lower interest rates and lower down payment requirements. I know sometimes these loans do get a little stigmatized because when we see more competition in our markets, they can take a little bit longer in closing. Oftentimes, FHA loans will want to make sure that your home has certain like safety guards in place. They might require like chipped paint to be covered or railings to be put in, but that really is for the security and safety of the person who's going to purchase that home. So I would not say, to count that out as an option. I used a FHA loan. I was super happy with it, and was able to utilize a really low interest rate also. And then there's also veteran loans for anyone who is a veteran or a spouse or a child of a veteran. These loans can be used more than once, and they can also be transferred to other properties. They have really great, down payments, sometimes no down payment required, really low interest rates. I am not an expert on these loans, but I would definitely recommend if you are a veteran or connected to one to ask your mortgage lender about those programs too. Another exciting option is a 203K loan. This is a construction loan. What happens is there's pretty much like an insurance component of your loan that provides money up front for you to do rehabilitation on your home. So when you think of like the Instagram videos or the TikToks where it's like, this is what I qualify as a first-time homeowner. This home is not impressive. Like it's looking a little down in the dumps. These are loans where you're going to purchase your home and then also have money available to rehab it when you move in. They are a little bit involved. I know someone personally who did a 203K loan, but I mean, it can pay off if you're willing to put in that work and time and also just want a beautiful home at the end and maybe not able to find that right up front. And then there's also like several economic development loans. So there's rural development and urban development loans available. You'd be surprised what areas may qualify for that. They're based off of geographic location. But these are things that you should ask your mortgage lender about. Also ask your realtor if they're familiar so that they can pull properties that are in these designated zones. Usually listings will say if they qualify for it, but sometimes they won't. And so again, just knowing that there may be programs and especially loan offers that can help you access the market. And then finally, kind of in the same trend of these like creative solutions that we're seeing because of our housing crisis that our nation and our state and our cities are facing, we're seeing new options like co-ops or, creative group home purchase options because the terms of those are so varied. Make sure that you're looking into those in detail. And it's not bad to have a professional like a mortgage lender or a realtor look at those with you, or even a lawyer. Just making sure that those options are fitting um, kind of what you're imagining when you're picturing yourself owning and maintaining a home. I did not include in here, but of course, there's always building your home as an option too. Again, that's not something I'm an expert in, so I won't speak too much about that. But just know that you can also reach out to your lender about a first time loan to build a home, also. Okay, so we're going to pause. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth. It looks like we still have, yeah, we definitely still have some time on our hands. So we're going to utilize the chat and then also reflect a little bit on these conversations. Again, my goal was to keep it broad enough that we could stay within our time limit while also providing like a good starting place for the resources that you can reach out to and utilize in your area. So first, if we can just reflect on what you can do as a first step or a next step in your home purchase journey. And before you put anything into the chat, I'll just go back through these slides. So again, we have don't count yourself out. We talked about this kind of traditional process of purchasing a home. Maybe your first step is finding a mortgage lender that you trust. Maybe it's just going and finding out about your fair housing center near you. Maybe it's looking over your own personal finances to see how much debt are you carrying? How much income do you have? We just filed taxes recently. Maybe it's looking over your last tax filing to see what your income was. Knowing your rights. And we talked about these professionals who are going to be part of your journey too. So with all things considered, what is a first step or a next step for you in your home purchase journey?
And also the chat is open at this time now, if folks want to write their reflections in the chat too.
Thank you. And as people write, do you mind just sharing those out? I don't want to lose my screen here.
Yes, I can. So while we wait for folks to trickle on in with some responses, I will share in the chat, I just said from my personal experience, we quote unquote shopped around from a realtor. Which I didn't even know that that was a thing until a soror of mine who's in this chapter. She was like, yeah, I interviewed my realtors. Like, nope. She was like, I fired one of my realtors because they didn't do what they agreed to doing, which I was like, wow, like you can do that. I never heard of that. So we actually talked to a realtor first, which for us, that helped us because that realtor had a whole presentation. And at the end of the day, she was like, listen, even if you don't come with me, I want to send you this information so that you can ask other realtors about this stuff. Like when you're thinking of a lender, these are some things that you should be looking for because that's going to help us make the underwriting process and all these other things more speedy. So I was very fortunate, like when we were looking at realtors, to have someone who was able to give that type of insight because I know that may not be everyone's story. But yeah, that was the first time I heard that when my line sister was like, yeah, girl, shop around.
Yeah, it's such a good point, Kim. Like, honestly, whoever you're working with to like buy or sell your home can really make or break your journey. And making sure that that person is also available to you the way that you need them to be, that they have the connections and just the overall energy. Like, you're going to end up spending so much time with that person, looking at showings, coordinating things. And you want to make sure that you're working with someone who's ethical, that has good communication, that has the availability that you need. You don't want to, hopefully schedule to see a home and it's already off the market because you couldn't get in on time. So making sure that it's someone that you feel confident about working with, a lot of agents will ask you to sign a contract with them, which pretty much says like you agree that you're working exclusively with them for a certain amount of time. And if you're signing on to that, you want to make sure it's someone you feel really good about before like signing on the dotted line, even for that relationship.
Totally
Anything
agree.
else?
That's
And it's okay
awesome.
if it's just like a reflection also. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, I think so Ashley Powell, she put in the chat, for me, I would like to revisit my personal finances and connect with HUD counseling organizations
Mm,
to prepare.
yeah, and they're so helpful. Like, again, you can have that soft credit pull and it'll give you your full credit history and then your credit score, but then also education around it too. And for those of us who maybe already purchased a home, you can also get options or education around like what it means to refinance your home. If you got a really great interest rate, you might be sitting happy. If you're buying now, maybe, or more recently, maybe you're considering what it looks like when there's an opportunity to refinance and adjust the rate on your home too. So those places can be a really great wealth of information.
Yeah, just to kind of expand on that a little bit for me. I just because I just got married. So it's like those big purchases, it's like, okay, we know this is next to like purchase a home, but I'm like, okay, now I need to revisit to see exactly where we're at and what does that look like as
Mm-hmm.
far as how it can happen. So like definitely need assistance because that's not my area of expertise to
Yeah.
the counseling to get, where I need to be to make sure that we're prepared to purchase, make that big.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's nice to start with like more of a neutral party. Um, of course, like when you're working with the agent that you know and trust well, they would be on your side and, advocating you throughout that process. But if you don't have that relationship yet with somebody, it's kind of nice to start with like a neutral party who can give you a baseline. That way, like, okay, at least I know what baseline I'm looking for when I'm talking to these other professionals. And like, is this normal?
I don't
All
think we
right.
have anything else in the chat at this time.
All right, great. So then also if there's any resources you're looking forward to, I know Ashley shared about like utilizing the HUD counselors. Maybe there's loan programs that you're interested in, which of course, dependent on approval with a lender.
One thing I want to note too, I think this is very helpful to have like that list. And I'm glad you gave us the PowerPoints to send out to folks and all of the
Yeah.
resource links to send out to folks too, because I feel like I knew about advocating for or kind of asking those questions to the realtor piece of it. But as far as the mortgage lending, everyone always says like, go with your own where you already bank at because you'll get the best, rates or interest rate, which was true for us. But I was so surprised that our mortgage lender did not mention first time homeowner buyer assistance.
Yeah.
They did not mention that. And so for me, that was really shocking because I'm like, I've been with y'all for so long. Like, yes, y'all gave me a great interest rate and like it was like easy peasy to get approved. But I was like, the fact that you all didn't mention that was surprising to me. In the same line, sister that mentioned about shopping around for realtor, she said she did that as well, shopping around for mortgage lenders. When one of them was like, nope, we
Yeah.
can only give you this amount, she said, no worries, I'm gonna go to somebody else. And she really worked. And with that, it can kind of feel a little discouraging because it's like, oh, I gotta put in more time, more effort. But it
Mhm.
really pays off because that's money that you do not need to bring to the table. And if you want to put more money towards the principal, that goes for that. Or if you want to use it to rehab the home, like that's less money that you have to
Mhm.
come forward with it. And I was just like, wow, I really wish that my bank, my credit union who I go through was able to mention that. So I think this is very helpful because oftentimes we just assume that, well, they're the experts in the room. So like if I did qualify, they would tell me. And that just
Mhm.
wasn't my case. So I just think for me, like when I'm thinking about that, I was like, dang, I really wish that that was something that they told me.
Yeah, and like the way that they phrased it in one of the homeownership classes for the agency I used to work with is they would just be like, if you're shopping for a new car, you wouldn't go to one lot and they tell you all the terms and what they have available, and you're like, okay, great, let's do it. Like most people, when they're shopping, they're going to look for at least a second option, and that's for a car. This is for your house, which is a huge purchase, like something that you're usually signing up for like a 30-year loan for your property. So it's worth the time just to make sure that you're having those options presented to you too.
No, literally, like, and that's so true. And I didn't think about that because I was so like, whoever's the first one to accept me, because it's like a very, very, crazy market. Like, let me just go with them because I don't know if I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
get accepted. So I think the rushing piece of it was, and we had
Mm-hmm.
to expect back for that. So that was, yeah, that was just something that I wouldn't go back to that, but this is helpful.
Yeah.
Shakenya said in the chat that yes, we are currently shopping around for lenders.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a Q&A let me see, in the Q&A, it says, how can one access down payment assistance? And are there programs that match down payment savings?
Yes, there are. So the first part of that was just how do you access down payment assistance, right?
Yes,
I
yes, it
believe
was,
that's what
yeah.
it was. Okay, so the main way people are going to access them is through your mortgage lender. So if you're working with your mortgage lender, you would hope that they're going to present all the options to you. But the little like asterisk on that is that if someone's not a lender who's approved to work in those programs, they're not going to offer them to you because they want you as a client and they just don't offer those services. So, like what
Mm,
Cam was saying, she reached out to her local bank that she trusts. She's like, yeah, I have this established relationship. And if they're not approved for those loans, they just can't offer them to you. Which is why I do like so heavily recommend working with a HUD certified housing counseling agency, because there might be programs even specific to your area. Like I know Grand Rapids has some geographical programs that come with down payment assistance. There's also MISHDA home loans. That's the most common one that people think of it as a MISHDA loan. Um, it has up to $25,000 of down payment assistance. Don't quote me on that because they might have changed it recently, but it's multiple thousands of dollars of down payment assistance for that program. And then there are like programs through local nonprofits where you can get a few $1,000s. There's some lenders. I think the most like concentrated channel though is working with a HUD certified housing counseling agency, and then just being very specific and asking when you're reaching out to lenders. And if they are not presenting programs to you that have down payment assistance, it's okay to say, like, look, this is how much savings I have. I'm really looking for a product that has down payment assistance. Do you offer that? And if you don't, do you know someone that does? If they don't offer it and you specifically ask, they will share with you what other programs there are. So just not assuming that you're being presented with all of the options, but asking those next questions. And again, working with a certified HUD counseling agency, which is linked on this slide here. There's going to be a directory for your location.
yeah, those are
Great
definitely very
question.
helpful. We
Mm-hmm.
have a couple more questions coming into the chat right now. The first one, is it true that there are restrictions in the FHA loan? We were told that there is an income threshold and you may not be able to refinance years later.
So great question. Let me start by saying, because I'm not a mortgage lender, I don't want to give any concrete advice. Also that there's different FHA products. So there's not like one FHA loan. There's different FHA products that have their own specific terms. So that could be true for the one that you're locked into or the one that you're like navigating or discovering. If that's an issue for you, then I would ask them to present other options. And if they're not able to do that, it's okay to walk away from that lender and discover other options that are more flexible. Um, I know the MISHDA home loan does have some more requirements where you're not able to change a whole lot about your loan for like the first 5 years. So that could be what they're referring to. There are more flexible products and even FHA loans that are more conventional in nature. So, and in the terms. Good
Perfect.
question.
Then we have another question. Along with the mortgage payment, what are other costs to consider once you have
Mhm.
purchased a home?
Yeah, so let me also share expenses before you purchase your home and then after, Because most people think about like your down payment, but in addition to your down payment, you also have a earnest money deposit, which is when you're presenting your offer to the seller, you're going to put some money down up front so that they know you're serious about the purchase of your home. So you have earnest money, you have the down payment that you're going to provide, and then you also have closing costs to pay when you're at the table. Some buyers will ask the seller to cover those closing costs, and you can negotiate how much you're offering versus how much the seller is going to pay out of the proceeds of their sale. But that's something like most agents who have been in the business can give you a breakdown of your expected amounts, or also working with your lender, you can ask for like a sheet that will give you your breakdown. If I'm borrowing this much money and my interest rate is X amount, how much can I expect to pay in closing costs and earnest money deposit and my down payment and a monthly mortgage rate at this amount that I'm approved for? So that's before you purchase. Once you purchase, um, again, you have those closing costs at the table, and then you need to be mindful of repairs on your home, continued improvement. So, for example, we moved into our house. Thank God we got a home warranty, which also came with a monthly fee. But our water heater went out like probably 4 months after moving in. There's always that one thing that you don't expect, which was thousands of dollars. And thankfully, our home warranty covered that expense. And then you have to think about, what came back as a flag or a highlight in your home inspection too. Does your roof have to get repaired in 2 years? Or what's the condition of your stove? Is it important to you to have laundry in your home? And does it come with laundry, or are you going to have to buy those appliances? And then, of course, you have city ordinances to follow and your own like creative design with your landscape. So you can expect to spend money on maintenance fees that you may not have if you're renting. But definitely more expensive, like less fun expenses like a roof or making sure that your foundation is solid that you're going to have with home purchase. And those are things too that if you take like a first time home buyer class online or in person, they're going to go through that list in a lot more detail.
Perfect.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me also add furnishing your home. No one tells you how much curtains cost, how much couches cost. It's like one thing to have an apartment where you're providing your like main furniture for. It's another thing once you get into like window coverings and mounted lights. Like people do not tell you, and then you go to the stores to buy the stuff and it starts adding up very quickly. So if that's not a priority for you and where you're purchasing, what it ends up looking like, amazing. If it is, just consider that as you're walking through the home too.
I have a couple more questions. The first one is, would you say you should shop around for an agent before going on your own to search for homes, either virtually or in person?
Um, yes. The reason why I would first recommend getting a pre-approval if you're serious about the process, because it helps manage expectations a little bit. If you're going online on like realtor.com or Zillow or something like that, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in love with this home, it is perfect for my family, and you're looking at something that's like, let's say 350, it's like $350,000, and then you get your pre-approval and it's $100,000 less, it's hard to adjust our expectations of what the $250,000 home is going to look like versus what we were searching online. So like definitely do your search online for fun. Um, Most agents are not going to schedule like an individual showing for you without knowing that you have a pre-approval just for their time. I shouldn't say most. Some agents will not schedule unless you have a pre-approval to know that they're showing things within your budget. So I think it just depends on if you're looking for fun or if you're looking because you have a plan in place and you're looking to purchase within a specific timeline. If you're looking within a specific timeline, definitely know what your pre-approval is so you kind of know a realistic gauge of your options. If you're looking for fun, that's great, but also I wouldn't expect the same attentiveness from an agent that you might be working with. You got anything else?
Yes, we do have a couple of more questions here. One is, where could you find reputable real estate agents in your area? Do you have any recommendations on websites to use or stay away from, or red flags that lets you know you should not continue working with an agent?
Yes. So I remember my biggest red flag. I remember when I had first started looking for homes online. And when you see your home, usually like on realtor.com or something, there's a field that says, reach out to this agent. So I reached out to the agent and I got an email back that said, "Hi, Anya. I'm so and so. I'm your real estate agent. It's so great working with you, yada, yada, yada." Um, and right away, because I know some of the fair housing rules and real estate rules, I was like, well, wait, you are not my realtor. You're not my represented agent. We have no agreement in place. And unfortunately, some people do take advantage of people's unawareness of the process. And so if you have someone who's overly pushy on assuming that they are the designated person working with you, red flag. Also, red flag, if you are interested in a property, it's great to ask questions, but do your due diligence and look into that agent. Most websites will have a bio and then also stats on agents, so you can see how much they've done in volume on their sales, how much they've done on commissions, a bio about them, sharing a bit about who they are, where they're from, what their background was before. And I would just recommend having at least a phone conversation or in-person meeting with that person. We kind of know within ourselves, if we get a good energy or vibe from that person. Also, look at how long their exclusive agreement lasts for. So if you're, going to sign a contract saying that you are my agent, you're going to represent me, and that contract is for a year, maybe ask them how they resolve that contract. Otherwise, you could be locked into working with someone that you don't love working with for an entire year, which means if you're buying or selling even on your own, they're entitled to a commission from that sale based off of the terms of their contracts. There's those pieces. But then also, definitely if you feel like you're not being represented, if you feel like the person's not responding to you the way that they need to, if you feel like you're not getting access to the homes that you're needing to see in order to compete in the market and actually see things that fit your lifestyle, I think there are conversations that can be had, right? It's one thing to just tell your agent, I don't feel like our communication's been great. I need more. But if you continue hitting a wall, you have a few options. You can reach out to their broker, which is the main practice that they're operating underneath. And it's pretty much like their boss. You can think of it like that and say, hey, this isn't working. I need help because I'm not being represented well. You can ask to be let out of your contract. There are agents who may not want to let you out of that. Most agents don't want to work with someone who doesn't want to work with you. So you can dissolve that contract. If you feel like it is something that is violating your fair housing or is unethical, you can report them. That's going to be to Lara. It's the licensing board. And Laura makes sure that agents are following the rules pretty much related to their license. Hopefully that answered it. If not, feel free to phrase it again.
And then we have another one. It says that I've heard that due to current market conditions, it's better to buy homes by word of mouth instead of going through a realtor company. Is that true?
It can be a great option for sourcing homes. So there are cold calls, especially people who invest in real estate. They will cold call sometimes just to see hey, are you willing to buy your home? I would not recommend if you're not like an experienced investor or someone in real estate, I would not recommend representing yourself. Only because there's details within that contract that you're writing for your purchase of your home that you may mess up. There's just questions that agents will ask to represent you well throughout the sale, and you don't know what your seller is like. So a lot of times agents behind the scenes will kind of um, balance out emotions that can be tricky to navigate with sellers, especially if you're doing something where the seller wasn't planning on selling. You might have emotions tied to the property, and not everyone is super easy to work with. There are, like closing day stories that are really rough where they don't turn over the keys or there's still items of the seller in the property. And navigating all those things is just better to have a professional. But certainly, if you're experienced and you want to go that route, try it. I'm not going to say it's not an option, but having a professional goes a long ways.
Then I
Great
think we
question.
have, yes, great question. We have a couple in the chat. Do you know of any info about the NACA program, Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America program? I just recently heard about it online in a mentorship.
I don't know anything about the NACA program. So that's something that I will definitely look into for myself. Yeah, feel free to put in the chat if you know anything about just like the general nature of that program, if it's a first time homebuyer program or geographic.
And I think that is all of the questions and all the reflections for now.
Oh, great. There is also a link I dropped on the info sheet that goes with this presentation. If you're, some of the questions I heard are kind of like non-traditional paths, so like the word of mouth without an agent, or this, I hope I'm saying it right, NACA program. A podcast that I love listening to is Real Estate Rookies. If you're thinking more about like investing or house hacking, that's a really great platform that I recommend. They are professionals that do like very large scale investing. Um, and yeah, I just hear about all kinds of like deal setups or also negotiations or ways to raise money for the purchase of a property that I hadn't thought of before. So you can look at that link too if you want to test the waters with some of the more like investing resources. Otherwise, am I good? I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen then. There we go. All right. Well, thank you so much for the time. I know it was just more of a general overview, but I do hope that each of you will see at least a next step for yourselves within all that we covered today, whether it's reaching out to a new program that was shared during our chat or finding and interviewing a licensed agent to work with, or just figuring out what kind of loan programs you might be interested in and what your pre-approval would be.
All right, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Anya. We really do appreciate your knowledge today and your tips. Like I said, we had tons of questions. I hope a lot of people can use when we send out that information to reflect back on in their home buying process to help you guys along. But again, just to wrap up, thank you all for showing up on this Sunday afternoon to learn different ways so that you can ways to help yourself get through this home buying process because we know it's not easy. We know it can be challenging. So we wanted to be able to give you information so that it will be easier for you. So again, we will be sending out a survey so you guys can let us know how well we did today, as well as some information that you guys can use in the future. So thank you again. And you guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And yeah, thanks again.
All right. Thank
Thank you,
you. Thanks for
everybody.
having me.